Good morning. It's March 31st, 2025, and I wanted to just talk about this book that I've been enjoying. It's called This Book is a Meaningful Order by OKRM. And OKRM stands for Oliver Knight and Rory McGrath. These are creatives that run a studio called OKRM out of the UK, I believe. This book is, as I understand it, a sort of explanation around their work. I don't know how long they've been together, but I've been a long-time fan of theirs for probably the last, 10, 15 years. Probably one of my favorite studios, even though I create very different work. I generally work in more digital mediums, which they do. I think that their work, the stuff that I really enjoy, isn't the digital stuff. It's the stuff that you hold in your hands or you encounter in a space or at an exhibition or you wear on your back. They've worked for different fashion labels, etc. I think that's not to say I don't love their digital work, by the way. I just haven't seen much of it. And candidly, their website doesn't show not even a fraction of the work that they've done. Oh, there's the book there. Moving on. What do I like about this book? Well, a number of things. It's a very beautiful book. I'll try and flip through it kind of quickly. It catalogs many projects that they've worked on over the years. You'll notice that there are these little captions woven throughout, just helping explain the decisions they made, why they made it. And really, it dives into their philosophy and thinking around form and how to create form in a way that honors the subject material and honors the viewer. Something that also really caught my eye as somebody who's co-running a studio myself is they start the book with one sentence. And that sentence is, "The studio is one project." Why is that interesting? Well, it's because it's not as if every image they create, every website they make, every moving image that they capture is all for the sake of the studio, I don't believe. It's just that it comes from the studio. It comes from this point of view, this conviction, which they do a good job of explaining and showcasing. And I think that's a really interesting idea. I know it sounds so simple. Of course, it comes from one studio, but it requires a sort of communion, a shared point of view between these people for it to really land, for this point of view to really be useful. At any rate, I digress. There are a couple of pages like so, where they really explain something at length. And I wrote this in my own words, and I wanted to share it with you. I found it a little bit dense, maybe a little too academic for my small, smooth brain. But let me share this with you because I think that there's something insightful here. The studio operates with full awareness of its reality. There's no separating art from commerce anymore. Economic logic is both a tool and a tension in the work. While the studio aims to be efficient and leverage repeatable systems, it refuses to default to the path of least resistance. Thanks to digital tools and the autonomy they bring, designers are no longer burdened by technical gatekeepers. This frees up creative energy, not to pursue fixed forms, but to push and to question how form itself is used. The studio treats form as a ready-made vessel shaped by discourse rather than discipline or material. They move past outdated ideas of interdisciplinarity, instead orchestrating design across formats, experiences, and mediums. Craft still matters, but it's in the service to ideas. Graphic design's basics, text and image, are gateways to space, performance, distribution, and community. The studio also inherits a modernism's economical page, a now automated set of typographic conventions and formats rooted in industrial efficiency. These once radical systems are now so omnipresent they've become scarce in a strange way. The studio leans into this tension, using modernism's ubiquity as a new kind of rarity to work with. There are a couple of points that stood out to me. One, finance, or the economics of what we do, isn't just a limitation. It's a tool. I think back to video games, like old Game Boy games, which is what I grew up playing, and the limitations of how much you could fit on that tiny little cartridge really was a creative tool. They had to creatively find ways to solve their problems by working in this little sandbox. I like the point that designers are no longer burdened by technical gatekeepers, and that this idea of interdisciplinarity is outdated now. I know for myself as a designer and developer, for almost all of my career, that has been sort of a thing that set me apart. And I feel I'm not in an identity crisis necessarily, but everybody now is a designer and developer because the tools have made it so. And there's limits. There's limits, both to what I can do and what somebody who's vibe coding can do. But the fact remains, this idea of being interdisciplinary is outdated now. I think that's interesting to reflect on. And this becoming outdated frees us up to think about form itself as a tool for communication. How can it be more effective? How can we be more helpful? How can we create things that are more compelling and informative and maybe even persuasive in good ways? These are good questions, big questions. Craft still matters, but it's in service to ideas. I think that's always been the case, but I just think it's even more the case now. Anyhow, I digress. It's a beautiful book. Pick up a copy. I purchased this from Actual Source. I would support them. They're good folks. I met them in Portland a couple of times at a show at Fisk and at Instrument. A couple of them came by the agency I worked for. At any rate, I love this book. I love OKRM, and I send my love to you.